Hi friends, Betsy Herman here, and I wanted to read a little bit to you from my book, Beauty in Barren Places. This is taken from chapter 2. So much of life is like the ebb and the flow of the ocean, the coming and going, the fullness and emptiness. The flow, when the ocean comes rushing in, and everything seems abundant, even to the point of feeling overwhelming. The ebb, when excitement fades, life feels dull, relationships ebb and flow, finances ebb and flow. So do moods and energy and hope. As I began writing this book, I contemplated the stories God has authored in my life. I grappled with disappointing situations, unmet longings, and life not going like I thought it should. It was as if God were whispering to me, "Look for my beauty in the barren places." If you stand on the ocean shore, looking out at the vast sea, you see something much bigger than yourself. You often see beauty, but sometimes you see storms. At times, the sandy beach is covered with unique seashells. Other days, it's bare. Sometimes you see abundant life. Other times, you quickly sidestep to avoid setting your foot on a dead sea creature that washed ashore. I'm learning that even in the empty spaces, God is still the creator of beauty. His beauty can be found in the barren places. He demonstrates His goodness always. I find it easy to see beauty and barrenness throughout nature, evidence of a winter ice storm glistening on leafless trees, or a flower determined to bloom after struggling to grow through a crack in the sidewalk. One day, someone handed me a postcard of Joshua Tree National Park. I have never visited that park, and the image that I held in my hand made me feel awe at the sight of the bristly, spiky trees that looked like they were designed by Dr. Seuss. The designer of all creativity planted them there, in the desert landscape, because he loves making barren places beautiful. He created something whimsical in a desert place that we might otherwise assume to be dry and lifeless. When our lives feel barren for any reason, such as prolonged singleness, infertility, financial struggles, relational emptiness, no matter why we feel barren, there is beauty to be found. My life so far is not the story I would have written, tied neatly with a bow like a predictable, happy Hallmark movie. However, as I contemplate all that God has done, I see the goodness of God. The barren seasons that we all experience are an opportunity to open our eyes to God's goodness. Acknowledging God's goodness and having an attitude of thankfulness towards Him is a key to living fully. Psalm 27:13 says, "I remain confident of this. I will see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living." Right here, right now, I can choose to look for God's goodness. I am determined to see God's goodness this year of my life. I can find His goodness today. That's the end of the excerpt. And just to tell you a little bit more background of this book, Beauty in Barren Places, it took about 5 years of writing it after I wrote my first book about infertility. This is not a book about infertility directly, but that was part of the area of my life in which I felt barren. And we had other struggles going on in our life at that time, other areas of our lives where we felt like life was not going like we thought it should be going. And after I published this book, 2 weeks after I published this book, I was 34 weeks pregnant, and our baby stopped moving in the womb, and his heart had stopped, and a couple of days later, several days later, he was stillborn. I was almost 41 years old, and if I thought life wasn't going according to plan before this, life was definitely not going according to our expectations. And it was a real test of, do I believe what I say I believe? And 9 months later, I say yes. I still believe what I have said I believed, that God is still good every single day. And every single day I can stop and look and say, okay, what's the good that God is doing right now? And Beauty in Barren Places, the subtitle is Seeing God's Goodness Here and Now. And I truly believe that we can see God's goodness here and now, regardless of our circumstances. And I have definitely had my continued challenges in that area. And this is the second video I've made in this corner of my neighborhood, and we live in a very busy part of Hawaii, and so there's always background noise, whether it's birds or geckos or lizards or mopeds or helicopters. There's always noise. I see a little lizard running past me right now. I wanted to share that with you in hopes that it would encourage you, that it would speak to you, and I encourage you to also pick up the book, Beauty in Barren Places, and keep reading, because there are a lot more personal stories that I did not share in this video, and a lot more insight into disappointment and lack, and how God is the finder of lost things, and how God is a provider, and how God surprises us. Even in this book, I tell a story of how we ended up in Hawaii. That was something we never expected. So I'm glad to share stories with you. I suspect I have another book brewing. Well, I know I do. It's just a matter of bringing it out of me. But I've been working on it. So there's more coming. I hope you jump in and follow along. My website is www.hopeduringinfertility.com. That's definitely part of our story, and that's the best place to find my writing. I'm all on social media, so look for me there. Thanks for listening.